Man, I'm so verbally inept because I'm literally so excited about getting my new Kindle e-reader tomorrow that I cannot sleep. Reader problems, am I right? Greetings, friends. It is Jazz here, and welcome to episode 8 of the Jane Eyre Project, that fabulous project that I began where I read books related to the novel Jane Eyre. Today, I'm embarking upon a vlog-style video, which will hopefully be spoiler-free. Pretty spoiler-free, in my opinion. The only actual plot points that I discuss are already in the summary, so they're not really spoilers to me if you can read it in the summary on the back of the book. And then for the rest of this, I'm mostly speaking about my reactions to different characters in a broad way and a lot of the themes that are talked about, so I'm not really spoiling any plot points. For the book Death of a Schoolgirl by Joanna Campbell Slan, this is the first book in the Jane Eyre Chronicles, series. And I'm very excited to dive into this because it sounds so different from anything that I've read yet for the series. As I recall, the premise of this book is that there is a mysterious death at Adele's boarding school, and Jane is going to go and do some amateur sleuthing. I'm definitely in the mood for a mystery, so I think I've picked a good one for the month of April. And I also want to just mention that I'm excited because I managed to get this book used in large print, so it'll be real easy on my eyes, which is, yes, always a score. If you get it used, good condition, and in large print, you are set. I'm going to start from now on announcing the next book I'm going to read for this series at the beginning of the video. So the next book that I'm going to read for the month of May is Ironskin by Tina Connally. So if you want to read along with me and read Ironskin, definitely do that. The video for Ironskin will be posted on May 31st. Let's move along. Got my new Kindle. I am so excited. This was my old one, and while it still works, it's probably like the second generation Kindle. It is so old, I'm surprised that it works. So I really needed a new one because I've gotten back into reading books in ebook because I don't know, I was back into it. And I also saw on TikTok that you could decorate the back of a clear one with craft paper. So I found this cool mermaid craft paper in my craft paper collection, and I put some mermaidy themed stickers on it, put this cool magnetic ring socket because I like to hold it with a ring, but this way I can switch hands, which is bomb. Also, I got book mail, and I got the next book we're going to read for this, Ironskin. It's an ex-library copy that I got for like $7 because I wanted it in hardcover. And I'm going to see if I can get the Denver Library kind of sticker off the front. I don't really care about the other stickers elsewhere, but I don't know. That one kind of bugs me. On to discussing the fabulous book. I have to have people tell me that I'm not an idiot. I just want people to tell me that I'm not stupid. I opened this book, and in the preface, it says that it starts in April 1820. And I was like, because all this time, all of my life, been rereading Jane Eyre since I was 12. I'm 6 books in to this Jane Eyre Project series, right? This whole time, I thought that Jane Eyre was set during the Victorian era. And then I looked at the date, 1820, I went, that's not the Victorian era. So this made me do a deep dive Google search on Jane Eyre and like when it's set. And technically the book ends by like 1819, which means the entire book of Jane Eyre takes place during the Georgian era. And then this book is taking place at the end of the Regency period, or the official end. There's some like debate on how long the Regency period is. My mind is blown. This whole time I've been imagining Jane Eyre in all the wrong clothing. I've been just not like thinking about anything about the book like correctly at all. I blame this Victorian confusion on the fact that every adaptation of Jane Eyre has had the Victorian setting and fashion in it. Now, there's an interesting note in the afterword of this book, actually, about the timeline of the book and why Joanna Campbell Slan decided to set this particular story in 1820. A large part of it was because she thought it would be interesting to set it during the rule of George IV, who was kind of known for not being the best human. In fact, the author goes as far as to call him despicable. I think the author really wanted to explore a contrast between George IV's sort of debauchery moments and Jane Eyre's willingness to really seek good and seek self-betterment, and how that sort of, you know, political situation factors into some of the ideas of the story. There also is a little bit of a sarcasm in which George IV was sort of forced to marry someone he didn't want to marry, and so there's a low-key sarcasm about how that parallels Edward's background in this book. It puts like a whole new spin on Rochester taking Adele in, because Rochester's literally taking an award from France during the Napoleonic Wars. I'm super enjoying this so far. I'm about 90 pages into the story, and the first couple of chapters are kind of a introduction to Jane Eyre situation. So I think the author wanted to make sure that if you're somebody that hasn't ever picked up Jane Eyre, or if you're someone that hasn't read Jane Eyre in a while, you got a little tiny tidbit of a review of some of the characters and some of the events that take place before, so that you're not confused. But also, it was kind of good to have some characters reintroduced, because the dynamics between some of the characters are a little different because of where everybody is in their life by the time we hit the beginning of this story. And there are, of course, new characters that have to be introduced. That it does take like a little second for the like full action to get rolling but by the end of the second chapter, the action's pretty much going. The book is written in first person from Jane's perspective, and you're supposed to sort of assume that these are more of her journals that were kind of found, and that after Jane Eyre, she, like the fictional character of Jane Eyre who was publishing her autobiography, like nobody liked her book, so she didn't want to publish any more of her journals. And so you're supposed to kind of assume that this is a continuation of her journals, and I'm assuming that for the rest of the series. So I thought that was very clever. Now, Jane and Mr. Rochester are the cutest couple in all of coupledom right now. I really do like that the book truly shows that they've found equality in their relationship, but also it's just really sweet that Mr. Rochester just wants to show how much he loves Jane to like everybody and talk about it all the time, because he's never had a wife he could do that with, and it's just all. I also think it's really sweet that Jane really is understanding, because he has obviously like his missing hand and his missing eye, and they're like struggling with him possibly like losing more sight and the remaining eye that he has, and that she really like knows that he feels this loss of independence when he's been this really independent person, and she's really gung-ho to like be supportive of him and try to like find ways for him to be independent when he can be. Then Jane is also a new mother, so she had her son Ned. They call him Ned because he's like Edward II. And oh, little Ned. I feel like a lot of classic book characters, when they have children and they were orphans, really do have this thing to want to give their children the things they never had. Not only does the motherhood aspect tie into her wanting to do that for her child, but there also kind of comes in this same tie of her being the lady of the house and what is expected from that situation. And she's definitely grappling with finding a balance there, because she obviously has lived her life really simply for all these times. And then now she's kind of trying to find her way through living more a high-class society life. There's a new way to treat people. She's like used to being on like a similar level to servants, but obviously Mrs. Fairfax is like, if you treat your servants like friends, they're gonna walk all over you. And also like kind of at that time doing certain like things as a mother isn't something that mothers really do. Like, you don't always like take care of your child on your own when you're like the lady of the house. And she's like, but I want to. Jane, being sort of somebody that's kind of used to living a very quiet life, realizing that, oh, I might have to do more things to like engage in society and different groups of people, because I want my child to have like a full social experience and have those opportunities. And I think those are just interesting things that you just don't really think of in relation to Jane Eyre, because you'd have to have a continuation novel like this one. This isn't really a spoiler because I feel like it's in the summary on the back of the book, but Jane and Rochester have received a mysterious letter from Adele that kind of has secretly put like, hey, help me, I'm in trouble. Jane and Rochester immediately go, this does not sound like a good situation. And Jane also has some, I would say, low-key kind of PTSD reactions to it, just because she grew up in such a horrible school situation. And so she's like, I gotta handle this right now. And if we've learned nothing from our reading of Jane Eyre, Jane and traveling are not mixy things. So there have been some debacles, shall we say, in the journey. Some caused by just bad things happening. Some caused by the fact that Blanche has spread some rumors about Jane. Blanche, even when you're not present, you're still there making trouble for Jane. It also comes kind of back to Jane's adjustment to class because of the way she like looks and is currently dressed. People don't always take her seriously, or people don't, like, they know her backstory, but they assume things about her, and so she's still judged by her pre-marriage status, which I guess brings to thought that you have trials no matter like where you are in your life. Love and money just don't solve all your problems. So I think this book does a good job of discussing that, like, Rochester and Jane, they still have trials. They still have like judgment from other people. They still have struggles with health and things like that. Like, even Jane has some health struggles due to like the effects of her like post-pregnancy. So like, you know, you're always gonna have something going on. And I think it's important to show that like the couple, that they're like working together to sort of work through these trials that they kind of have. Right now, Jane has just arrived in London. She's met Edward's friend, Lucy. And then I'm also very excited to see what happens with Adele's school. I'm a hot mess. Not that it matters, but we're just going to go with the flow. I'm on page 158. The mystery has started to be revealed that there's going to be a mystery, and I only have like a couple of things to say, but I wanted to pop in here and say them because I'm going on a little lake vacation trip. It's like my mom's birthday trip. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be updating during the trip, but I'm gonna pack some stuff in my camera bag and at least take you guys, and you'll at least get a little vacay montage. I was like low-key triggered when I found out that Adele's school was trying to like make her go by the name Adela, and I think it's because Wide Sargasso Sea, and to a certain extent the book Mr. Rochester, like made me triggered, just because in those books obviously Bertha's real name is Antoinette or Antoinetta sometimes. In some of those things, but either her middle name's Bertha or they have the nickname of Bertha for her, and it's like decided that she will use the name Bertha because it sounds more English, and it's the same reason that happened in this Adela situation, and I was just surprisingly like, that's not right. We're not doing that to Adele today. We're not doing the Bertha treatment on Adele, as I call her Bertha, but I just decided long ago that that's the name she goes by in Jane Eyre, and my brain won't get confused if I just go with it. One of the videos that I did that did talk about names in Jane Eyre that I did put up in the Wide Sargasso Sea video, which I will link the video that I mentioned below in the description. One of the elements of it was if Jane Eyre at the end of Jane Eyre becomes Mrs. Rochester. It was kind of decided at that end of the video that Jane does not necessarily become Mrs. Rochester. Edward becomes her Edward. Like, she refers to him as my Edward. Kind of making her being called Mrs. Rochester at any time in Death of a Schoolgirl, like, really strange. I don't even think it's just strange for me. I think it's strange for the other characters. Like, even Rochester doesn't call her Mrs. Rochester or Jane Rochester. He calls her Jane Eyre. She's referred to as Jane Eyre Rochester. Like, she still, like, kept her name as part of her name, and most people just call her Jane, and then sometimes when she is called Mrs. Rochester, it's almost in this like derogatory way, or in like this sort of like humorous way. Like, it's never done in any kind of like serious manner. I gotta admit though, I do think it's really super cute that Rochester, like at the front of the book, was really trying to maintain her name because like he's not putting ownership over her at all. Like, it's kind of a fun symbol. I also forgot to mention in the little bit that I read that I really like that when Jane travels, that she takes little like mementos of different people in her life, like friends and family, with her, and I just thought that was just a fun detail that was cute. The mystery hasn't fully unfolded. It's just like we've revealed that there has been a death at the school. Yet again, that's not a spoiler because that's in the summary of the book. I'm really enjoying the new characters that have been introduced. One is the headmistress of the school, who was someone that Jane worked with when she worked at Lowood School, which was an interesting addition. I really like Lucy. She's fun and sweet. She calls Jane, it's her sister. Anybody that's nice to Jane is good in my books. And I just like that she's not judgmental of people in general, and that's really fun. Funny moment was when Jane was like, I want to have friendship with Lucy, but I just don't know how to go about it. I was like, girl, same. This is me in friendships. I'm like an ambivert, so I have like extrovert tendencies and introvert tendencies, but my introverted ones, when they come out, it's usually when I'm trying to make new friends, and I'm like, I want to be friends, but I don't know how to be friends. Lucy's brother just kind of came into this story, and I don't know much about the man, but he sounds like he's gonna be a hoot. He's like super, super handsome, and so it was like cracking me up in his introduction that like all the maids and like every woman in the vicinity except for his sister was like checking him out low-key, and then his sister totally is just like used to people checking him out, and she's like getting like a super laugh even though like the situation is really serious. Even Jane was like, he's not really my type, but I really want to draw him because stunningly beautiful man. Cracked up, died, laughed so hard. Another new character that I know that is gonna be our not so great character is, I think her name's Mrs. Thurston. She's like the actual like person that's running the school currently. She seems meaner than Second Skimmings, so I definitely don't think I'm gonna like her. But, you know, I don't think I'm supposed to. Also, Jane is making me hungry. Like, girl needs to eat. I guess she's so used from her youth and, like, other elements of her life to being hungry that sometimes she, like, forgets to eat or goes, I'll eat later after I've handled this. And she ends up starving, and then I end up being hungry. So I need the girl to, like, eat some dinner soon. Cue, like, probably a little travel montage. We basically just went like on walks in the park and like on hikes and stuff because there's like a lake and stuff. I showed you some stuff of that in my montage, and one of the days my mom and I went shopping. We went to this little cute Bible store that's in Winchester, Tennessee, because that's where we went, and I wanted to show you what I picked out. I also went to a really cool boutique where I got this cool shirt dress thing, which I'm just kind of wearing as a long shirt right now, and these earrings, and a lot of other really cool stuff. Many other cool things, but this is a book channel for the most part, and let's talk about what I picked out at the Bible store. I got another coloring Bible. I already have a coloring Bible. Basically they have like really cool pictures to color in them, but I saw this and it's got like gold sprayed edges and I just could not resist. I will find some way to use this. Also, if I run out of coloring pages in my current one, I will have all of these 400 coloring things. This has just been really working for me to get in the Bible by, you know, crafting it a little bit and making them have like themes and stuff. And this is like faux leather bound and like fun. Also got this little Christian fiction called With This Pledge. I think it's a historical fiction. It's set where I live, so I thought that would be a cool purchase. And I got 2 devotionals. One is for conquering anxiety. I already have like a depression anxiety devotional, but I wanted another one for when I finish that one. And I got this Trusting God Day by Day, which is a Joyce Meyer devotional. Oh, I forgot. The lady at the Bible store actually let my mom and I pick out a book for free. I chose the abridged version of Hero of Hacksaw Ridge just because I thought that was an interesting movie when I watched it. I usually don't get abridged versions of things, but considering that my normal go-to reading is not necessarily biographies of war situations, I thought the abridged version would just be enough for me. So I like that this is kind of a traditional old school mystery layout. Haven't read one of those in a little bit, so I think it's a fun time. Now, I will say that an element of that is that the characters often kind of go over where they are with the things that they've learned, often in that type of story or media even sometimes, and kind of hit the bullet points and summarize a lot of where the, mystery is and the things that they found out. Some people, that might not be for them because somebody might find that repetitive, but I'm just kind of used to it because I think that is content that I consume and enjoy. I like that Jane has a fun collection of things that make her a really good detective and things that maybe make her not such a good undercover detective in this story. Things that make her an excellent detective are, of course, that she has an artist eye, so she's a really good observer. It also helps her kind of have good logical skills that lead her to taking steps to doing things or studying just small, minute details in the school that she finds and stuff like that. She also has that really good skill and flair for foreign languages. I like that she's a flawed detective in the way that subterfuge is not really her skill. She always had a really big imaginative skill, which is very good for the things that she normally does, but when she's a detective, she has to check herself and go, am I taking this imagination thing too far? And then sometimes, it works in her favor and sometimes it doesn't. The story is doing a really good structural thing of really keeping there being a lot of suspects for this murder mystery and not making anybody too much of a red herring. The book does do something that Jane Eyre does where it implies that there is sort of an otherworldly quality about Jane, and it implies it kind of at the beginning, not unlike Jane Eyre, so that when other things happen, you don't go, what the heck? So just like in Jane Eyre, it implies that there's sort of that quality so that when Jane hears Edward calling from a distance, it's not just a random occurrence that throws the reader off. And this book kind of does a little bit of that too, which I'm proud of myself for catching that little detail. Also, this book made sure to insert the bird motif that is Jane's motif a little bit in the story. So I think I'm going to update you with one final update on my final thoughts on the book after I've completed it. So see you later. Okay, y'all, I actually finished this 2 weeks ago, but I just want to let the world know that ADD, executive dysfunction, procrastination is a real thing. And honestly, I used that procrastination time to rearrange and organize my bedroom and write a paper for school. So it wasn't wasted time. I actually hyper-focused on things that I genuinely needed to do, but I also needed to finish this video, and it is now the day before this video is going to be up, and I haven't finished filming this video. I made notes so I wouldn't forget what I wanted to say in this final update. And I've also saved all my deep thematic thoughts just for this update because I feel like my brain is awake and alive and ready to focus on telling you the details on that. I think something that this book focuses on is something that is really great to discuss because the idea of classism is a high focus in this story, but I don't think it's anything that I've talked about so far in this series. And of course, that is a huge part of the Jane Eyre story. So I don't know why I haven't thought to discuss it until now, but I'm glad it came up. There are many characters of higher and lower class in this story, and it definitely discusses the pain both sides of the line kind of experience in their lives. But I thought one of the really interesting topics of discussion that did occasionally come up was this concept of the French and even the American ideology, where we are seeking a government in which the lowliest, the poorest, the people that came from nothing can rise up through their own works. Whereas there's sort of almost a British ideology of you're at the station you are and that's it. Although weirdly that made me sing like this song from my favorite movie, Slipper and the Rose. Position and positioning are socially conditioning. Though you work your life away, where you work is where you stay. Which means there's nothing changeable, nothing's rearrangeable. Position and positioning, everything in life. I think it's just intriguing to see different characters' viewpoint on that topic, and nice that the author showed that this is something that's in the minds of the characters during the time period, particularly because Jane sort of has a, empathy for both sides of the line, because she was obviously lucky enough to, before she was married, be independently wealthy through inheritance, and also she was, for lack of a better term, I guess, I will say, she was able to marry up in society as well. So she has sort of a lucky life, and she's seeing that through experiencing both sort of discussions about class and what it means. This also brings in a lot of discussions about women and women's generally unhappy feelings about their life, no matter what station they find themselves in. On the lower class side, there is obviously not much considered appropriate work that you can do. So sometimes you end up doing work that you don't particularly like. You may absolutely hate it, but that is like one of the jobs that you are able to do as a woman. There are also discussions sort of about how even if you're not at the lowest class situation, you are not really considered a person or cared about by the upper class, and how that can lead to obviously a great deal of unhappiness and actual sort of darker experiences. But there are discussions too about how women in the upper class almost live in a gilded cage, that they don't have a excellent life experience either. How these girls in this girls' school are just being trained people that will live lives of luxury, but will also live lives where they will not have the ability to have thoughts of their own or to really attain marriages that are happy, or they will be forced to marry whether they want to marry or not. And there are a lot of connections too with food to that, almost like they feed the girls well so that they will be shapely and attractive, so that when they are of marrying age, they will almost be like cattle to be sold off during the marriage mart. And how some of the characters that are adults that are in that higher class are experiencing maybe some unhappiness, even though they have everything they could want, because maybe they can't have children, or they can't live up to what is considered the expectation of a higher class female. And so they also experience a certain level of unhappiness with their trials. Also, in terms of like the marriage situation, I think Jane really sees how lucky she is that, you know, she and Edward genuinely have like a rapport and a friendship. They are each other's best friend and see each other equally, and that not everybody gets that experience. Additionally, she's just very lucky that like she had a husband that like worked on himself, because I could tell in this book that Edward did a lot of self-reflection and has worked on himself. And I say, you go, Edward. You do your best. I think this is one of the most likable Edward Rochesters out of the books that I've read. So, go him. And then a particularly interesting plot point that intrigued me in it, that's very subtle, but I thought was interweaved into the story almost in a way that really did affect the ability to solve the mystery, was this idea of alcoholism and drug use from the female characters, and how they kind of start out as things to help with pain or as things to do socially, but they do become almost like a slippery slope where you could become inadvertently addicted solely because that's something you do socially, or that's something you do to sort of ease your unhappiness when you initially started to do that just because of pain. There's also, like, obviously they're taking things like laudanum and things and even giving it to the young women in the story to help them sleep or help them with pain or whatever. It's really easy for the female characters, due to the circumstances in their lives, no matter what class they are in, to kind of fall into this slippery slope of addiction. On to my overall final thoughts. I thought this book was just so well structured, particularly just how everything came together at the end. And also, I was really happy that I did not guess the whodunit of the story. It was the perfect whodunit, and the clues were perfectly laid out so that they weren't too obvious. But I thought the way it worked out really did fit all the themes that I just talked about so perfectly to the T, and was pretty action-packed, had lots of things going on in the story. And I really do see why this won an award, because it actually had like more than one mystery going on, but I didn't realize it. But another thing that I liked aside from the mystery is that Jane and Edward really do have some character building and some character development. It really does show in a continuation that you as a person always have to make new realizations and develop in different ways. And I really liked that it showed that Edward and Jane had this realization that as like wealthy people, they really did need to contribute to their community, and with their great blessings, like use that to help everyone around them, that they had a responsibility to do that, because for so long they'd been in their own bubble. Their experiences kind of made them see outside of that bubble. I think it would have been really easy to kind of blow off these characters that we already know and enjoy and not give them anything new to grow from. But I think it's smart that the author did in fact do this for these characters. I personally love this book. I definitely want to read the next 3 books in the series. I found them on Kindle Unlimited, and in fact all these books are on Kindle Unlimited, so I think I'm definitely going to pick them up and give them a read. Y'all are gonna think that I give all the books in this series 5 stars because I've given so many 5-star ratings, but I'm gonna give this one 5 stars. I think it is a really excellently structured mystery. Death of a Schoolgirl, another excellent 5-star read that I would definitely recommend if you are a Jane Eyre fan like me. Though wish me luck, because I've literally saved all the books that I'm not sure I'll like for like the last portion of the Jane Eyre project. So this may or may not be the last 5-star read. We're gonna see. But I'm honestly a little anxious. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That is it for today. I will see you all later with whatever my next video is, and thank you for watching. Bye.